Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, Foundations. Dominic Hawthorne wiped sweat from his brow as he hammered the final nail into the custom bookshelf he'd built for his son's bedroom. At 42, his calloused hands told the story of a man who had built his life from nothing, literally. 20 years ago, he'd been a construction worker with ambition but little else. Now he owned Hawthorne Construction, one of the most respected custom home builders in the Pacific Northwest. "That looks amazing, Daddy," Tommy exclaimed, running his small hands over the smooth oak surface. "Only the best for you, buddy," Dominic replied, ruffling his 8-year-old son's dark hair, the same shade as his own. "You've got your mother's eyes, but thank God you got my handyman genes." Tommy giggled and began arranging his books on the shelves. Dominic watched him, a tightness forming in his chest. Something was off in his home, and it had been for months. His wife, Olivia, was distant, constantly checking her phone and working late at her interior design firm. The business had taken off after she'd landed several contracts designing high-end apartments for Meridian Properties, a development company run by Alastair Pierce. Dominic had met Pierce exactly twice. The first time at a charity gala where Olivia had introduced them, and Pierce had barely acknowledged Dominic's existence, his eyes lingering too long on Olivia's low-cut dress. The second time was 3 months ago, when Dominic had surprised Olivia at her office with lunch and found Pierce leaning too close to her at her desk, both of them laughing at something on her computer screen. Something in Pierce's smile made Dominic's skin crawl. "Daddy, can we have pizza for dinner?" Tommy asked, breaking into his thoughts. "Sure, buddy. Let's go ask your mom." Dominic found Olivia in their bedroom, applying makeup even though it was nearly 7 p.m. on a Wednesday. "Tommy wants pizza for dinner," he said from the doorway. Olivia startled slightly, her hand jerking and smudging her eyeliner. "Jesus, Dom, you scared me. Sorry. Didn't realize applying war paint required such concentration." She shot him an irritated look. "I told you this morning, I have a client meeting tonight. At 7 p.m.? Yes, at 7 p.m. Alastair's investors are in town, and he wants me to walk them through the design concept for the new lakeside development." Dominic leaned against the doorframe. "Alastair, huh? First name basis with the boss now." "Don't start, Dom." She blotted her lipstick. "This is a huge opportunity. The lakeside project could double my firm's revenue. And Alastair couldn't schedule this meeting during business hours? His investors are only in town tonight." She stood, smoothing down her form-fitting black dress. "I won't be late. Probably home by 10. Dominic watched as she gathered her portfolio and phone. Tommy's looking forward to pizza with both his parents. Guilt flashed across her face, but was quickly replaced by determination. "We'll have family dinner tomorrow. I promise." After she left, Dominic ordered pizza and ate with Tommy, helping with homework and tucking him into bed. Then he sat alone in his home office, nursing a whiskey and staring at the motion-activated security app on his phone. He'd installed the system himself after a break-in at a neighbor's house. The cameras covered every entrance to their property, including the driveway. At 10:30 p.m., his phone buzzed with an alert. A car was pulling into their driveway, a sleek black Audi he recognized as Alastair Pierce's. Dominic watched the grainy night vision footage as Pierce and Olivia sat in the car for 7 minutes. There was no mistaking their silhouettes moving closer together, their heads joining in what could only be a kiss. Dominic didn't slam his fist into the wall. He didn't throw his glass across the room. Instead, he took a screenshot, sent it to his private email, and poured another finger of whiskey. His father had taught him that a man never loses his temper. He channels his rage into action. By midnight, Olivia still hadn't returned. Dominic went to bed, lying awake until 1:23 a.m. when he heard her key in the door. She slipped into bed 30 minutes later, smelling of expensive cologne that wasn't his. Dominic closed his eyes, his mind already calculating. Alastair Pierce had just made the worst mistake of his life, and Olivia would soon learn that betraying Dominic Hawthorne wasn't just breaking a vow. It was declaring war. Chapter 2, discoveries. For 6 weeks, Dominic continued as if nothing had changed. He built shelves, attended Tommy's soccer games, and kissed Olivia goodbye each morning. But every night, he gathered evidence. Screenshots from the security cameras, GPS location from the family iPad that Olivia sometimes forgot was linked to her phone, and carefully documented timelines of her late meetings and weekend design emergencies. It was Tommy who unwittingly provided the final piece of the puzzle. "Dad, can you help me with my social studies project?" he asked one Saturday morning while Olivia was supposedly at a design conference in Portland. "Sure, buddy. What's the topic?" "We're making family trees. I need pictures of everyone." Dominic helped Tommy gather photos from their family albums and digital archives. As Tommy sorted through images on Dominic's laptop, he clicked on a folder labeled Property Photos. "Is this our house being built?" Tommy asked, pointing to construction images. "That's right. I took pictures of every stage." Tommy scrolled through photos of foundation pouring, framing, and roofing. Then he stopped on an image of Dominic standing with his original business partner, Floyd Callahan. "Who's that, Dad?" Dominic felt a familiar pang at the sight of Floyd, the man who'd helped him start Hawthorne Construction, only to abruptly sell his stake in the company 3 years ago after a mysterious financial windfall. "That's Floyd. He used to work with me. He looks like Mr. Pierce." Dominic froze. "What did you say?" "He looks like Mr. Pierce. Mom's friend who gave me that cool drone for my birthday last month." Dominic kept his voice casual. "You've met Mr. Pierce?" Tommy nodded. "He came to the house once when you were in Chicago. Mom said it was for work, but they were just laughing and drinking wine." Dominic's mind raced. Floyd and Pierce, both tall with salt and pepper hair, both with connections to Olivia. It couldn't be coincidence. "Tommy, let's take a break. I need to check something for work." While Tommy played video games, Dominic dove into research. It took just 30 minutes to discover that Meridian Properties, Pierce's company, had purchased 3 parcels of land in the last 3 years that Hawthorne Construction had been poised to develop. Each time, they'd been outbid at the last minute by an anonymous buyer that turned out to be Meridian. And each time, Floyd had been involved in the preliminary site assessments. The pieces clicked into place. Floyd had been feeding inside information to Pierce, who was using Olivia to get it. The affair wasn't just personal betrayal. It was industrial espionage. Dominic called his attorney, Russell Davidson. "Russ, I need you to quietly pull all documents related to Floyd's departure. And I need to know if Meridian Properties has any financial connection to him." 2 days later, Russell confirmed what Dominic had suspected. Floyd had received a consulting fee of $250,000 from shell company owned by Meridian Properties right before selling his stake in Hawthorne Construction. That night, Dominic sat across from Olivia at dinner, watching her push food around her plate while checking her phone under the table. "You seem distracted," he commented. "Just stressed about work." She didn't meet his eyes. "Anything I can help with?" She shook her head. "It's complicated. Design stuff. Alistair, keeping you busy?" Her eyes flicked up at the mention of Pierce's name. "The whole team is swamped with the Lakeside project." "Funny thing," Dominic said casually, "I almost bid on that Lakeside property last year. Beautiful location. Someone outbid us at the last minute." Olivia's fork clattered against her plate. "Really? You never mentioned that." "Didn't seem important at the time." He smiled and took a sip of water. "How's Alistair's wife, by the way? Gwen, right? I heard she's on some charity board with Senator Walsh's wife." Olivia paled slightly. "I wouldn't know. We don't discuss personal matters." Dominic nodded, filing away her reaction. "Of course not. Strictly professional." Later that night, he made a call to an old friend from his construction days who now worked for the city planning department. By morning, he had digital copies of all permit applications for the Lakeside development. By afternoon, he discovered 3 critical code violations in Meridian's plans that had somehow been overlooked by inspectors. Dominic wasn't just gathering ammunition. He was building the foundation for a demolition so complete that when it was over, no one would even remember there had once been something standing in its place. Chapter 3. Strategy. Dominic stared at the chessboard on his desk, his fingers hovering over a knight. Across from him sat Howard Bellamy, his oldest friend and the only person besides his lawyer who knew what Olivia had done. You're thinking too hard, Howard said. Sometimes the simplest move is the best. Simple moves are predictable, Dominic replied, finally moving his bishop instead. And I can't afford to be predictable right now. Howard leaned back in his chair, studying the board. Have you considered just confronting her? Divorce her, take half, move on with your life? This isn't about money. It's always about money, Dom. No. Dominic's voice hardened. It's about respect. About consequences. Pierce didn't just take my wife. He and Floyd systematically undercut my business, using Olivia as their spy. They need to understand what happens when you betray Dominic Hawthorne. Howard moved his queen. Check. Dominic blocked with a pawn without hesitation. I'm not just going to divorce Olivia. I'm going to dismantle everything she and Pierce thought they were building. And how exactly do you plan to do that? Pierce has connections. His brother-in-law is Deputy Mayor Nelson, which is precisely why he's been able to slide past building inspections and zoning regulations. Dominic reached for a folder and handed Howard several documents. But not everything can be hidden with a well-placed bribe. Howard reviewed the papers, his eyes widening. These geological surveys. The lakeside property has significant soil stability issues that Pierce's team deliberately concealed when they submitted their permit applications. They're building a 50-unit luxury development on land that could experience liquefaction in an earthquake. Jesus, that's not just unethical, it's criminal. Exactly. Dominic took Howard's night. And that's just the beginning. Over the next hour, Dominic outlined his plan. First, he would continue gathering evidence of Meridian's permit violations and code shortcuts. Second, he would secure his finances, discreetly moving assets to protect them from the coming divorce. Third, he would leverage his connections to buy strategic properties surrounding the lakeside development, effectively controlling access to utilities and road improvements the project would need. What about Olivia and Tommy? Howard asked. You're talking about destroying their future too. Dominic's expression darkened. I've already arranged for Tommy's financial security. I've established a trust fund in his name that neither Olivia nor I can touch. As for Olivia, he moved his rook. She made her choice when she decided to betray me with Pierce. She just didn't understand the consequences of that choice. And what about Floyd, your old partner? Floyd will learn that loyalty isn't just a word you toss around at company barbecues. Dominic's smile didn't reach his eyes. He sold out for $250,000. What he doesn't know is that the information he gave Pierce was incomplete. The structural plans for our major projects were modified after his departure. Any building using those specifications would have serious issues within 5 years. Howard looked troubled. That's extreme, Dom. No, it's justice. Pierce and Olivia didn't just have an affair. They systematically worked to undermine everything I've built. They used my son's mother as a weapon against me. Dominic moved his queen. Checkmate in 3 moves. Howard studied the board, then looked up at his friend with concern. You've changed, Dom. No. Dominic stood, walking to the window that overlooked the city. I've simply stopped pretending to be someone I'm not. My father built houses for 40 years. He taught me that the foundation determines whether a structure stands or falls. Pierce, Floyd, and Olivia built their plans on a foundation of betrayal. Now they'll watch it crumble. That night, after tucking Tommy into bed, Dominic found Olivia in their bedroom, packing an overnight bag. Going somewhere? He asked, leaning against the doorframe. Design retreat in Astoria for the weekend. I told you last week. She didn't meet his eyes. No, you didn't. She paused, then continued packing. I must have forgotten. It came up suddenly. Seems like a lot of things come up suddenly these days. She zipped the bag shut. What's that supposed to mean? Dominic smiled, the kind of smile that should have warned her. Nothing. Enjoy Astoria. The weather's supposed to be beautiful. Almost as beautiful as the view from Pierce's beach house in Cannon Beach. Olivia froze, her knuckles whitening around the handle of her bag. What are you talking about? Just making conversation. Tell Alistair I said hello. She stared at him, her face drained of color. Dom, don't worry, he said softly. Tommy and I will have a great weekend. I'm thinking of taking him fishing. Building memories, you know? the kind that last. For a moment, fear flickered in her eyes. Then she gathered herself. We should talk when I get back. Oh, we definitely will. Dominic stepped aside to let her pass. Have a wonderful weekend, Olivia. Make the most of it. As her car pulled out of the driveway, Dominic returned to his office and opened his laptop. The blinking dot on the GPS tracker he'd placed under her car confirmed she was heading toward the coast, not north to Astoria. He picked up his phone and dialed. Russell, it's time to move forward with the property acquisitions around Lakeside, and I need you to file those preliminary divorce papers on Monday. Yes, with the sealed evidence appendix. She'll be served when she returns from her weekend getaway. Dominic ended the call and turned to the wall map, where he'd marked Pierce's properties and developments. One by one, he began placing red pins on strategic locations, the first visible markers of a plan that had been forming in his mind for months. The war had officially begun. Chapter 4. Execution. The following Monday, Dominic sat in his office reviewing blueprints when his phone rang. Olivia's name flashed on the screen. He let go to voicemail. 3 minutes later, it rang again. And again. By the fourth call, he picked up. You had me served with divorce papers at my office? Her voice trembled with fury and shock. I thought your workplace was appropriate, considering it's where our marriage died. You can't do this. The allegations in these papers are all documented and verified, Dominic finished for her. The infidelity, the corporate espionage, the breach of fiduciary duty to our family businesses. Russell's team has been building the case for months. A long silence followed. When Olivia spoke again, her voice had changed from anger to calculation. What do you want, Dom? Money? The house? Name your price. Dominic laughed softly. That's the difference between us, Olivia. You think everything has a price. Some things can't be bought back. Is this about Alistair? It was a mistake. I can end it. Too late. He kept his voice even, emotionless. Check your email. I've attached the complete evidence package, including the reports proving you and Pierce used information from Floyd to undercut Hawthorne Construction on multiple projects. The same package is being delivered to the Ethics Committee of the Architectural Design Association this afternoon. I imagine your license will be under review by the end of the week. You would destroy my career? Her voice cracked. What about Tommy? Think about what this will do to him. I'm always thinking about Tommy. That's why I've arranged for full custody. Your visitation rights will depend on the court's assessment of your stability and judgment. You can't take my son. Actually, I can, and I will. The evidence of you using Tommy as cover for your meetings with Pierce is particularly disturbing. The text messages where you discuss how to manipulate our son's schedule to create alibis for your rendezvous won't play well before Judge Martinez. Another long silence. Then what about Pierce? Does he know? Pierce will learn his lesson separately, though I imagine his investors might be calling soon. Those structural issues with the Lakeside project are becoming common knowledge in certain circles. Dom, please. Her voice softened, attempting the conciliatory tone that had worked on him so many times before. We can talk about this. Work something out. We're past talking, Olivia. In fact, we're past everything except the consequences of your choices. He checked his watch. I have a meeting. Tommy will be staying with me at the lake house until the custody hearing. His things are already there. You have until Friday to remove your personal belongings from the house. Anything left will be donated. The lake house. Her voice rose. But that's mine. Always was. It's in my family trust, not our marital property. He allowed himself a small smile. You might want to check the ownership of your design firm's office building, too. Russell completed that acquisition last month. He ended the call and turned to the window, watching the Seattle skyline as gray clouds gathered over Puget Sound. His phone immediately began buzzing with text messages from Olivia, alternating between threats and pleas. He blocked her number and continued reviewing the blueprints for his newest project, a community center being built on land directly adjacent to Pierce's Lakeside development. By Wednesday, the ripples of Dominic's actions had become waves. The Architectural Design Association had suspended Olivia's license pending investigation. 2 of Meridian Properties' investors had pulled out of the Lakeside project after receiving anonymous packets containing geological surveys and structural assessments. And Floyd Callahan had been served with a civil suit alleging breach of contract and corporate espionage. On Thursday, Dominic received a call from an unfamiliar number. Hawthorne. He answered curtly. This is Alistair Pierce. The voice was tight with controlled rage. We need to talk. I don't believe we have anything to discuss. Listen, you vindictive bastard. I don't know what game you're playing, but it stops now, before we both end up destroying each other. Dominic leaned back in his chair. That's where you're wrong, Pierce. I'm not playing a game, and there's no both here. Only you, watching everything you've built turn to ash. Is this about Olivia? Fine. It's over. I've ended it. She meant nothing. Good to know. I'm sure she'll appreciate hearing that. Pierce's voice lowered. What do you want? Money? A partnership? Name it. What I want, Dominic said slowly, is for you to experience what it feels like when someone systematically dismantles your life's work. When everything you value is taken from you by someone you trusted. You're insane. No, I'm patient and thorough. Dominic checked his calendar. By the way, how's the meeting with the bank going today? I heard Lakeside's construction loan is under review. Pierce's breathing audibly quickened. How did you? I know everything, Alistair. Your shell companies. The bribes to building inspectors. The falsified environmental impact statements. The fact that your brother-in-law, Deputy Mayor Nelson, helped fast-track permits for projects that didn't meet code. You can't prove any of that. I already have. Check tomorrow's Seattle Times. Front page, above the fold. Developers' empire built on quicksand. Corruption in Seattle's building department exposed. The line went silent, except for Pierce's ragged breathing. One more thing, Dominic added. Tommy's birthday party is next Saturday. He's turning 9. The invitation sent to your house was a mistake. Please don't attend. Dominic hung up and swiveled his chair to face Howard, who had been sitting silently across the desk. Was that necessary? Howard asked, mentioning the boys' party. Everything I do is necessary. Dominic handed him a folder. These are the final documents for the property transfer. Once signed, the land surrounding Lakeside will be owned by Tommy's trust. Howard reviewed the papers. You're putting all of this in Tommy's name? The access roads, the utility corridors. Pierce will have to negotiate with my son's trustees to complete his development, or abandon the project entirely. And who are the trustees? Dominic smiled thinly. You and Russell, with explicit instructions never to approve any request from Meridian Properties or its subsidiaries. Howard shook his head. The level of detail in this revenge plan is disturbing, Dom. It's not revenge. It's justice. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, you're becoming as ruthless as the people who betrayed you. Dominic's expression hardened. The difference is I never drew first blood. I never betrayed a partner or broke a vow. Everything that happens now is simply the natural consequence of their actions. That evening, as Dominic helped Tommy with homework at the lake house, his phone rang with Russell's familiar number. It's done, Russell said without preamble. The Seattle Times is running the story tomorrow. The FBI has opened a preliminary investigation into Nelson and the building department. And Floyd Callahan has agreed to testify against Pierce in exchange for dropping our civil suit. Perfect. Dominic glanced at Tommy, happily drawing at the kitchen table. And the other matter? For Tommy's birthday. The paperwork is complete. The deed will be delivered as arranged. It's quite the gift, Dom. He deserves everything. Dominic's voice softened watching his son. After what they put him through, using him as a pawn in their game, he deserves to know his father would move mountains for him. After ending the call, Dominic joined Tommy at the table. How's the drawing coming, buddy? Good. It's our family tree for school. Tommy pushed the paper toward him. See? That's you and me at the top. Dominic noticed that Tommy had drawn only 2 figures at the top of the tree, with Olivia noticeably absent. Buddy, you know your mom loves you, right? Even with everything that's happening. Tommy's small face grew serious. Is Mom in trouble? I heard her crying on the phone with Mr. Pierce. Dominic chose his words carefully. Your mom made some choices that have consequences. But nothing changes how much we both love you. Is that why we're staying at the lake house? Because of Mom's choices? Partly. Dominic put his arm around Tommy's shoulders. But also because I thought we could use some father-son time before your birthday party. Tommy brightened. Is everyone still coming? Absolutely. And I have a special surprise planned. Dominic tapped the drawing. Maybe you should add a spot for your future. We want to build someday. As Tommy excitedly added to his drawing, Dominic gazed out at the lake, watching the last light fade from the sky. By this time next week, Pierce's reputation would be in tatters, Olivia's career would be effectively over, and Floyd would be testifying before a grand jury investigating corruption in the building department. And Tommy, innocent Tommy who had been used as an unwitting pawn in their schemes, would receive a birthday gift that would secure his future in ways Olivia and Pierce could never imagine. Chapter 5, Consequences. The Seattle Times headline was even more damning than Dominic had anticipated. Corruption exposed. Developers' empire linked to bribes, falsified permits. The front page story detailed how Meridian Properties had systematically bribed officials to overlook safety violations and bypass environmental regulations. Deputy Mayor Nelson had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation, and 3 building inspectors had been suspended. Dominic read the article twice over breakfast, then set it aside as Tommy came into the kitchen. Dad, can we go fishing today? Absolutely, buddy. Right after I make a quick call. In his office, Dominic dialed Russell's number. Have you heard from Pierce's attorneys? They're in full damage control mode, Russell replied. They've requested a meeting to discuss, and I quote, mutually beneficial resolutions to ongoing disputes. Decline the meeting. I have no interest in resolution. Dom, from a legal standpoint, it might be wise to at least hear what they're offering. What they're offering, Dominic said coldly, is desperation. Pierce is watching his empire crumble. His investors are fleeing. The banks have frozen his construction loans. His wife has filed for divorce after learning about Olivia. He's hoping to negotiate his way out of consequences. And you're not interested in negotiation? I'm interested in completion. The job isn't finished yet. After ending the call, Dominic took Tommy fishing. They spent the day on the lake, catching trout and talking about school, friends, and Tommy's upcoming birthday. For a few hours, Dominic allowed himself to forget about revenge and simply be a father. But that evening, reality intruded. As Tommy played video games, Dominic received a text from an unknown number. You've made your point. Let's talk. For Tommy's sake. Oh. Dominic blocked the number without responding. Then another text from a different number. This has gone far enough. You're destroying lives. Meet me tomorrow at 2 p.m. The usual coffee shop. He blocked that number too, but the interruption had soured his mood. Tommy noticed his father's darkened expression. Is everything okay, Dad? Dominic forced a smile. Everything's fine, buddy. Just some work stuff. How about we make some popcorn and watch a movie? Later that night, after Tommy was asleep, Dominic sat on the deck overlooking the moonlit lake. His phone rang. Howard. Pierce showed up in my office today, Howard said without greeting. He looked desperate, Dom. Said he wanted to make amends. Offered to sign over his interest in the lakeside property to Tommy's trust. And what did you tell him? That any offers needed to go through your attorneys. But Dom, the man is on the edge. The FBI raided his offices this morning. His wife has filed for full custody of their children and a restraining order. Olivia has been calling him nonstop, blaming him for everything. Sounds like things are progressing exactly as planned. Howard's voice lowered. He mentioned something else. Said Olivia told him you had security footage of them together. That you'd known about the affair for months, but kept silent, gathering evidence. Is that a question? It's a concern. This calculated approach, it's not like you, Dom. Maybe you never really knew me. Dominic watched the water ripple under the breeze. Maybe none of them did. What happens after Tommy's birthday party? After this grand finale you've planned? I rebuild. Tommy and I start fresh. Pierce, Olivia, and Floyd live with what's left of their lives. And that's enough for you? Destroying them completely? Dominic's voice hardened. They didn't just have an affair, Howard. They conspired to undermine my business. They used my son as cover for their meetings. They laughed about how easily they were manipulating me. I have the texts, the emails, the recorded conversations. So yes, complete destruction is exactly what they deserve. The day before Tommy's birthday, Dominic met with Judge Martinez in chambers, accompanied by Russell. They presented evidence of Olivia's involvement in the business espionage, the text messages discussing using Tommy as an alibi, and documentation of her increasingly erratic behavior since being served divorce papers. Mr. Hawthorne, Judge Martinez said after reviewing the evidence, "While these materials are certainly troubling, I'm concerned about your request for emergency, full custody with supervised visitation only. That's an extreme measure." "Your Honor," Dominic replied calmly, "I've never interfered with Olivia's relationship with our son. I've encouraged it, even knowing what I know. But her recent behavior has become increasingly unpredictable. She's appeared at Tommy's school twice, attempting to remove him without authorization. She sent him disturbing late-night text messages blaming me for destroying their family." The judge frowned. "Those texts are concerning. Tommy's welfare is my only concern. I'm not seeking to punish Olivia by limiting her access to our son. I'm seeking to protect him from the fallout of her choices until she stabilizes." After further discussion, Judge Martinez signed the emergency custody order. Olivia would be permitted supervised visitation only, pending a full hearing after psychiatric evaluation. As they left the courthouse, Russell glanced at Dominic. "That went better than expected. Martinez is usually more hesitant with emergency orders." The evidence was compelling. Dominic checked his watch. "Is everything arranged for tomorrow?" "Yes. The delivery will arrive at 2 p.m., as requested, and the documents are prepared exactly as you specified." Dominic nodded. "Perfect. Tommy deserves to know that his future is secure, regardless of what happens between his mother and me." That night, Dominic tucked Tommy into bed at the lake house. "Big day tomorrow, buddy. 9 years old. Practically a grown-up." Tommy grinned sleepily. "Will Mom be at my party?" "Yes, she'll be there." Dominic smoothed Tommy's hair. "And lots of your friends. And a very special surprise. Better than last year's drone from Mr. Pierce?" Something cold flickered in Dominic's eyes, quickly masked. "Much better. Something no one can ever take away from you." As Tommy drifted off to sleep, Dominic returned to the deck with a glass of whiskey. His phone showed 6 missed calls from Olivia, 3 from Pierce, and 1 from Floyd. He deleted them all without listening to the voicemails. Tomorrow, the foundation he'd been meticulously building for months would finally support the full weight of his justice. And everyone who had betrayed him would understand exactly who Dominic Hawthorne really was. Chapter 6, Revelations. Tommy's birthday dawned bright and clear. Dominic spent the morning setting up decorations at their main house. Balloons, streamers, and a space-themed cake, Tommy's latest obsession. The party was scheduled for 1 p.m., with the special delivery arranged for 2 p.m. At noon, Dominic received a call from the security company monitoring the property. "Mr. Hawthorne, we have an unauthorized entry attempt at your rear gate. A Ms. Olivia Hawthorne is trying to access the property before the designated time." "Is she alone?" "Yes, sir. Allow her entry, but monitor her movements." 15 minutes later, Olivia stormed into the kitchen where Dominic was arranging snacks. "How dare you get an emergency custody order?" Her eyes were red-rimmed, her normally perfect appearance disheveled. "Supervised visitation? Psychiatric evaluation? You're trying to make me look crazy." Dominic continued arranging fruit on a platter. "The evidence speaks for itself, Olivia. Your behavior has been erratic and potentially harmful to Tommy, because you've systematically destroyed everything in my life. My career, my reputation, your affair." Dominic finally looked at her. "Your conspiracy with Pierce to undermine my business? Your use of our son as cover for your meetings?" She faltered momentarily, then rallied. "It wasn't like that. Alistair and we fell in love. It happens, Dom. Marriages end. But this scorched earth campaign you've launched, it's insane. No, what's insane is thinking you could betray me and face no consequences." He kept his voice calm, almost conversational. "Did you really believe I wouldn't find out? That I wouldn't protect what's mine? Tommy is not a possession. On that, we agree." Dominic checked his watch. "Guests will be arriving soon. You're welcome to stay for the party. Tommy wants you here. But if you cause a scene, security will escort you out." Olivia's shoulders slumped. "What happened to you, Dom? You were never this cold, this calculating. I was always this person. You just never gave me reason to show it. He handed her a stack of plates. Make yourself useful. The children's table needs setting. For the next hour, they worked in silent tension, preparing for the party. Guests began arriving. Tommy's friends from school, Howard and his family, Russell and his wife, and various neighbors and friends. Tommy excitedly greeted everyone, proudly showing off his space-themed decorations. At 1:45 p.m., a commotion at the front door drew Dominic's attention. Alistair Pierce was arguing with the security guard. "Sir, you're not on the approved guest list," the guard was saying. "This is ridiculous. I was invited. Ask Olivia." Dominic approached. "Is there a problem?" Pierce turned, his handsome face haggard with stress. "Dominic, be reasonable. I just want to give Tommy his gift." "You weren't invited, Alistair," Olivia said. "Olivia doesn't make those decisions anymore." Dominic's voice was quiet but firm. "Tommy's party is for family and friends. You're neither." Pierce's expression hardened. "This vendetta has gone far enough. You've destroyed my company, my marriage, my reputation. What more do you want? I want you to leave. Now." For a moment, it seemed Pierce might argue further. Then his shoulders sagged. "Fine, but this isn't over, Hawthorne. No one can sustain the level of malice you've demonstrated without it eventually consuming them." As Pierce turned to leave, Tommy spotted him from across the yard. "Mr. Pierce, did you bring another cool present like last year?" The adults froze. Pierce recovered first, forcing a smile. "Not this year, Tommy. I just stopped by to wish you happy birthday." Olivia hurried over, positioning herself protectively near Tommy. "Alistair was just leaving, honey." Tommy looked confused. "But Dad said Mr. Pierce gave you rides to work sometimes. Can't he stay for cake?" An uncomfortable silence fell. Dominic stepped forward. "Tommy, why don't you show your friends the new telescope on the deck? It's all set up." As Tommy led his friends away, Pierce and Olivia exchanged panicked glances. Dominic merely watched them, his expression unreadable. "How long have you known?" Olivia whispered. "Long enough." Dominic checked his watch again. "Mr. Pierce should leave now. The delivery will be arriving soon." "What delivery?" Pierce demanded. Before Dominic could answer, the security guard approached again. "Mr. Hawthorne, there's a delivery person at the gate. Says he has a package for Master Tommy that requires signature." Perfect timing. "Let him through." A few minutes later, a uniformed delivery man entered the backyard carrying a large envelope. "Package from Master Tommy, from a Mr. Jonathan. It seems to be the deed to—" Dominic interrupted smoothly. "Tommy, come here, buddy. You have a special delivery." Tommy ran over excitedly. "What is it, Dad?" "It's from your grandfather, Jonathan. Remember I told you about him?" Tommy nodded solemnly. "Your dad who died before I was born." "That's right. Before he passed, he set up something special for you. Something that would be given to you on your 9th birthday." Olivia approached, confusion evident on her face. "Dom, what is this about?" "Your father never." "Actually, he did." Dominic turned to the delivery man. "Please read the full delivery notice." The man cleared his throat. "Package from Master Tommy, from a Mr. Jonathan Hawthorne, posthumously delivered as instructed. It seems to be the deed to Hawthorne Lake and all surrounding properties, totaling 500 acres, including Lakeside Peninsula, now registered in the Hawthorne Family Trust with Thomas Hawthorne named as primary beneficiary." Olivia's jaw dropped. Pierce, who had lingered despite being asked to leave, went pale. "Lakeside Peninsula?" Pierce repeated. That's where my development is being built?" "Yes." Dominic smiled coldly. "Or rather, was being built. The trust now owns the land, the access roads, and the utility corridors. And the trustees, Howard and Russell, have clear instructions about development restrictions." Tommy was looking at the large envelope in confusion. "On a lake." Dominic knelt beside him. "You own the lake where we've been staying, buddy. Your grandfather wanted you to have it when you were old enough to appreciate it. It means no one can ever take it away from you." Pierce stepped forward, his face contorted with rage. "This is impossible. I have deeds, permits, based on falsified documents and bribes." Dominic stood, positioning himself between Pierce and Tommy. "My father purchased that land 30 years ago. It's been in a family trust ever since, with instructions for transfer to Tommy on his 9th birthday. Your purchase was from a shell company that never actually owned the property. Your real dad couldn't even afford a present like this, Pierce snarled, gesturing to the expensive drone sitting among Tommy's gifts, the one he'd brought despite not being invited. Tommy looked at Dominic with momentary confusion. Then understanding dawned in his young eyes as he realized Pierce had tried to suggest Dominic wasn't his biological father. Olivia gasped. Alistair, how could you say that to a child? But the damage was calculated. In that brief moment of doubt, as Tommy glanced between Dominic and Pierce, the final piece of Dominic's plan fell into place. My real dad, Tommy said slowly, looking up at Dominic, is the one who's always been there, who takes me fishing and helps with my homework. Dominic squeezed Tommy's shoulder, then addressed Pierce with deadly calm. Security will show you out now. If you ever speak to my son again, the consequences will make what you've experienced so far seem like a gentle warning. As security escorted a protesting Pierce from the property, Dominic turned to the silent, shocked guests. Everyone, please enjoy the party. Tommy has a cake to cut, and I believe there are still presents to open. Gradually, the festive atmosphere returned. Tommy, resilient as children often are, was soon excitedly explaining to his friends that he owned an entire lake. Olivia remained shell-shocked and silent, watching from the periphery as her son celebrated without needing her. Later, as guests began to leave, Olivia approached Dominic. Was this your plan all along? To use Tommy's birthday to deliver the final blow. Tommy's birthday was always going to be special, Dominic replied. The timing of everything else was fortuitous. And now what? You've destroyed Alistair. You've ruined my career and reputation. You've taken my son. Is your revenge complete? Dominic regarded her thoughtfully. It was never about revenge, Olivia. It was about consequences, about ensuring that people understand that every action has a response. He gestured toward Tommy, laughing with his remaining friends, and about making sure that my son knows his father will move heaven and earth to protect him, even from his own mother's poor choices. Olivia's eyes filled with tears. I never meant to hurt Tommy, but you did. When you used him as cover for your affair, when you chose Pierce over his stability and happiness. Dominic's voice remained even, without heat. Your supervised visitation begins next Wednesday. 3 hours, with the court-appointed supervisor present. I suggest you use that time to begin rebuilding whatever relationship you can with our son. As Olivia turned to leave, Dominic added, Oh, and Olivia? The lake house where you and Pierce used to meet when you claimed to be at design conferences? It's part of Tommy's trust now, too. I've arranged for it to be donated to a children's camp for underprivileged youth. Seems fitting, don't you think? Her face crumpled as she walked away, the full weight of everything she had lost finally sinking in. That night, after Tommy was in bed, Dominic sat alone on the deck of their home, nursing a whiskey and watching the stars. Howard joined him, taking the adjacent chair. Hell of a party, Howard commented. Tommy enjoyed it. The boy seemed happy, yes. Howard studied his friend's profile. And you? Did you get what you wanted? Dominic considered the question. Justice was served. The guilty were punished. Tommy's future is secure. That's not what I asked. Dominic turned to face his oldest friend. What I wanted was for them to understand exactly who they chose to betray. For them to recognize that actions have consequences. And yes, Howard, I got precisely what I wanted. Howard nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I think Tommy is lucky to have you as his father. A rare, genuine smile crossed Dominic's face. That, my friend, is worth everything. As Howard left, Dominic remained on the deck, contemplating the stars. The foundation of his life had been shaken, but not destroyed. He had rebuilt something stronger, more honest, and ultimately more enduring. Tommy would grow up knowing his father's true nature, not just the builder of houses, but the protector of what mattered most. And anyone who ever considered crossing Dominic Hawthorne in the future would remember the fate of those who had tried before. Chapter 7. Aftermath. 6 months after Tommy's birthday party, Dominic stood at the edge of Hawthorne Lake, watching his son skip stones across the placid surface. The lake house, now fully renovated, had become their primary residence. The city house sold to create distance from painful memories. 7 skips. Tommy shouted triumphantly. Did you see that, Dad? I did. You're getting better every day. Tommy beamed. Then his expression grew more serious. Mom's coming tomorrow, right? Yes, for your school play. Front row, as promised. The court-mandated psychiatric evaluation had eventually granted Olivia unsupervised visitation rights, though Dominic retained primary custody. In the months since the birthday party, she had slowly begun rebuilding her relationship with Tommy, careful to keep their interactions positive and free from the tensions between her and Dominic. Is she bringing her new friend? Tommy asked cautiously. Olivia had recently begun dating a teacher from Tommy's school, a relationship Dominic had thoroughly investigated before deciding the man posed no threat to his son. I believe so. Is that okay with you? Tommy shrugged. He's nice. He helps me with math sometimes. Dominic nodded, filing away the information. Good. Math is important. As they headed back to the house for dinner, Dominic's phone rang. Russell. I'll be right in, buddy. Start washing up, he told Tommy before answering. Russell, what's the update? Pierce's appeal was denied. The property remains in Tommy's trust, and the development project is officially dead. And the criminal charges? He took the plea deal. 18 months in a minimum security facility, 5 years probation, and restitution payments to the affected homebuyers. What about Floyd? Probation only in exchange for his testimony. He's moved to Arizona, trying to start over. Dominic absorbed this information with quiet satisfaction. And the deputy mayor? Nelson resigned last week as part of his own plea agreement. The FBI investigation is expanding to other developments and officials. Perfect. Dominic gazed out at the lake. And the community center construction? On schedule. The Hawthorne Foundation's first major project will open next spring. After Tommy's birthday revelation, Dominic had established the Hawthorne Foundation, dedicated to building safe, affordable housing and community spaces. The first project, intentionally located adjacent to what would have been Pierce's luxury development, was a community center providing after-school programs, job training, and resources for families in need. Any word from Olivia about the foundation board position? Dominic asked. Her attorney says she's considering it. It would be good optics for her rehabilitation in the community. Dominic had recently offered Olivia a non-voting advisory position on the foundation board, a calculated move that would show the community he was willing to co-parent civilly while keeping her firmly under his control. Keep me posted. And Russell, thank you for everything. That evening, after dinner and homework, Dominic sat in his office reviewing the latest foundation plans when Tommy appeared in the doorway. Dad, can I ask you something? Always, buddy. Tommy entered hesitantly, clutching a framed photo, the one of Dominic and Floyd that he'd found months ago. Why do you still have this picture if Mr. Callahan was a bad person? Dominic considered the question carefully. Floyd made bad choices that hurt our family. But before that, he helped me build something important. The picture reminds me to be careful who I trust. Mom says people can change, that everyone deserves forgiveness. Your mom has a perspective, and there's wisdom in forgiveness. Dominic set the photo aside, but there's also wisdom in remembering that actions have consequences. Tommy frowned, processing this. Is that why Mr. Pierce had to go to jail? Because of consequences? Exactly. Mr. Pierce broke the law. He cheated people. Those actions had consequences. But you didn't put him in jail. The police did. Dominic smiled slightly. The police enforced the law. I simply made sure the truth came to light. Tommy seemed satisfied with this explanation. I'm glad we live at the lake now. I like it better than our old house. Me too, buddy. After Tommy went to bed, Dominic poured himself a whiskey and opened his laptop. An email from Olivia awaited him. Dom, I've decided to accept the foundation board position. Not for you, but for Tommy. He deserves to see his parents working together on something positive. The past year has been a harsh lesson in consequences, as you would say. I've lost almost everything that once mattered to me. But I'm rebuilding, just as you've always been so good at doing. I'll never forgive you for the calculated way you dismantled my life. But I understand now what drove you to it. And perhaps, in some twisted way, I deserved it. See you at Tommy's play tomorrow. Olivia. Dominic read the email twice, then deleted it without responding. Forgiveness had never been part of his plan, nor had he sought her understanding. The consequences she had experienced were exactly what her actions warranted. No more, no less. His phone buzzed with a text from Howard. Dinner tomorrow after Tommy's play? We should discuss the Foundation's next project. Dominic replied affirmatively, then set his phone aside. Howard remained his closest friend, though their relationship had been strained by the events of the past year. Howard had questioned the extent of Dominic's retribution, concerned that the cold, calculating side of his friend had overtaken the man he once knew. But Dominic knew better. He wasn't changed. He was revealed. The mask of amiable builder and devoted family man had simply slipped to show the steel beneath. The unforgiving core that had always existed, waiting for a reason to emerge. The next day, Dominic sat in the school auditorium, watching Tommy perform in his class play. 3 rows behind him sat Floyd Callahan, now returned from Arizona for a brief visit. Dominic had spotted him entering, but gave no indication of recognition. In the row behind Dominic sat Olivia with her new boyfriend, maintaining a respectful distance. After the performance, as parents and children mingled in the lobby, Floyd approached cautiously. Dominic. Dominic turned, his expression neutral. Floyd, I didn't expect to see you here. My nephew is in Tommy's class. Floyd shifted uncomfortably. I wanted to say, don't. Dominic's voice was quiet but firm. Whatever amends you're hoping to make, save them. We're done. I know I can never fix what I did, but I want you to know I regret it. Every day. Regret is the luxury of those who've been caught, Floyd. It means nothing to me. Floyd nodded resignedly. I understand. For what it's worth, the Foundation's work, it's impressive. You've created something good from all this. I've always built things to last, Floyd. Even my retribution. Dominic gave a thin smile. Enjoy your visit. I suggest making it brief. As Floyd walked away, Olivia approached with Tommy. He was amazing, she said, smiling proudly at their son. He was, Dominic agreed. An awkward silence fell between them, broken by Tommy's drama teacher calling him over to take photos with his classmates. I've accepted the board position, Olivia said once Tommy was out of earshot. Russell informed me. I have some ideas for the Women's Resource Center. Design concepts that could. Submit them through the proper channels. The board will review them at the next meeting. Olivia sighed. Are we always going to be like this, Dom? Cold and formal. This is cordial co-parenting, Olivia. It's more than many in our situation manage. And more than I deserve, according to you. Dominic finally looked directly at her. What you deserve isn't relevant anymore. What matters is what Tommy deserves. 2 parents who can interact without hostility. That's what I'm providing. Before she could respond, Tommy ran back to them, excited about his performance. Dominic smoothly shifted into proud father mode, the momentary tension with Olivia invisible to their son. Later that evening, over dinner with Howard in an upscale restaurant overlooking Puget Sound, Dominic shared his plans for the Foundation's expansion. 3 new projects next year, he explained. The Women's Resource Center, a vocational training facility, and affordable housing near the university. Howard nodded approvingly. Ambitious, and funded entirely by the settlement from Pierce's company, primarily. Poetic justice. Howard studied his friend. You've channeled everything into this foundation. The revenge, the anger, even the proceeds from destroying your enemies. It's almost as if you're trying to balance some cosmic scale. There's nothing cosmic about it. Dominic sipped his wine. It's simple mathematics. They took from me, so I took from them. Now I'm building something better from the remains. And are you happy, Dom? Truly. The question caught Dominic off guard. Happiness had never been his metric for success. I have Tommy. I have purpose. The people who betrayed me have faced justice. That's not what I asked. Dominic considered the question more deeply. Happiness is for people who haven't seen behind the curtain. Howard, I've seen what people are capable of, the betrayals, the calculations, the selfishness. I don't expect happiness. I expect integrity in my dealings and consequences for those who lack it. That's a cold way to live. It's an honest way to live. Dominic raised his glass. To honesty, then. Howard reluctantly clinked glasses. To honesty, and maybe someday, to something warmer. Chapter 8. Reckonings. 1 year after Tommy's fateful birthday party, Dominic stood in the newly completed Hawthorne Community Center, surveying the space with satisfaction. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked what would have been Pierce's lakeside development, now a nature preserve established by Tommy's trust. "Mr. Hawthorne?" A young woman approached, clipboard in hand. "The reporters are ready for the press conference whenever you are." "Thank you, Jessica. 5 minutes." As the assistant walked away, Dominic felt a presence beside him. Howard had arrived, looking distinguished in a tailored suit. "Quite the achievement," Howard commented, gesturing to the bustling community center. "From blueprint to reality in record time. When you don't have to navigate bribery channels, construction moves efficiently." Dominic straightened his tie. "Is Tommy here?" "In the game room with the other kids. Olivia dropped him off. She's in the audience for your speech." Dominic nodded, unsurprised. Despite their history, Olivia had become an active contributor to the foundation, redesigning her career around community-focused architecture. Her expertise was valuable, and Dominic was pragmatic enough to utilize it, maintaining strict professional boundaries. "Any word from our recently released friend?" Howard asked carefully. Alastair Pierce had completed his prison sentence 2 months earlier, emerging from incarceration a shadow of his former self. His wealthy friends had abandoned him, his ex-wife had remarried, and his business empire had been divided among creditors and lawsuit settlements. "My sources say he's living in Portland, trying to rebuild with a small residential construction company." Dominic's expression remained neutral, operating under his mother's maiden name. "And that satisfies you? Knowing he's starting over from nothing?" "Justice isn't about satisfaction, Howard. It's about equilibrium." Pierce's actions damaged lives. His consequences reflect that damage. Before Howard could respond, Jessica returned to escort Dominic to the press conference. For the next hour, he spoke eloquently about the Foundation's mission, the community center's programs, and the upcoming projects. Reporters asked predictable questions about funding, staffing, and future plans, all of which Dominic handled with practiced ease. Until the final question. "Mr. Hawthorne," called a journalist from the back row, "your foundation rose from the ashes of the Meridian property scandal. Critics suggest the timing was opportunistic, that you leveraged Alastair Pierce's downfall for personal gain and public rehabilitation. How do you respond?" A tense silence fell over the room. Dominic located the speaker, a young reporter he didn't recognize. "An interesting perspective," Dominic replied calmly, "but factually incorrect. The Hawthorne Foundation was established using personal funds and legally obtained settlements. As for rehabilitation," he allowed himself a small smile, "I wasn't the one who needed rehabilitating." Scattered laughter broke the tension. The press conference concluded, and Dominic moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations and discussing future partnerships. He spotted Olivia across the room, deep in conversation with the Foundation's education director. Their eyes met briefly. She gave a professional nod, which he returned. Later, as the crowd thinned, Jessica approached again. "Mr. Hawthorne, there's someone asking to speak with you privately. He says it's urgent." "Did he give a name?" "Benjamin Walsh. He says you knew his father." Dominic stilled. Senator Walsh, whose wife had served on charity boards with Pierce's ex-wife Gwen. The connection was distant, but significant. "Show him to my office." Minutes later, a young man in his early 30s entered Dominic's office. Tall and well-dressed, with a confident bearing of old money and political connections. "Mr. Hawthorne," he extended his hand, "thank you for seeing me." Dominic shook it firmly. "What can I do for Senator Walsh's son?" Benjamin smiled tightly. "Former senator. My father passed last year. My condolences." "Thank you." Benjamin settled into a chair. "I'll be direct, Mr. Hawthorne. I'm here about Alastair Pierce." Dominic's expression remained impassive. "Pierce is no longer my concern." "Perhaps not, but you're certainly his." Benjamin leaned forward. "He's obsessed with you, with what you did to him. He talks about nothing else. That sounds like a psychiatric issue, not a business one." It became my business when he approached my development firm with information he claims could be valuable to us. Information about you. Now Dominic was intrigued. What kind of information? He wouldn't say specifically, just that it involved something from your early days. Before Hawthorne Construction became successful, Benjamin studied Dominic's face. He seemed to think it would interest me given my family's history with certain properties in the region. Dominic considered this. There was only one connection between his early career and the Walsh family. A parcel of land that had been central to his first major project, a project that had launched Hawthorne Construction's reputation. Why come to me with this? Benjamin sat back. My father always said you were a man of integrity in a business often lacking it. I'm not interested in Pierce's vendetta, but I am interested in knowing if there's any legitimacy to his claims before I waste resources investigating. And what would you do with this information if it proved legitimate? That would depend on its nature. Benjamin's expression hardened slightly. My family protects its interests, Mr. Hawthorne, as I believe you protect yours. The implied threat was subtle but clear. Dominic made a quick calculation. Pierce is grasping at straws. Whatever he suggested about my early projects or their connection to your family's properties is desperation from a broken man. You seem very certain. I am. Dominic stood, signaling the end of the meeting. But I appreciate the professional courtesy of this conversation. Your father raised you well. Benjamin rose, extending his hand again. He did. He also taught me to verify, then trust. I'll be looking into Pierce's claims, Mr. Hawthorne. Not out of malice, but due diligence. You'll find nothing worth your time. For both our sakes, I hope you're right. After Benjamin left, Dominic immediately called Russell. I need a complete background check on Benjamin Walsh, and I need to know who Pierce has been meeting with since his release. Something concerning? Russell asked. Potentially. Pierce has apparently approached Walsh with claims about my early projects. Specifically, I believe, the Westridge development. Russell was silent for a moment. That could be problematic, only if there's evidence. And we both know there isn't. There's always evidence, Dom. Sometimes it's just buried deep enough that no one thinks to look for it. Dominic ended the call and stared out the window at the nature preserve that had once been Pierce's dream development. The man was more resourceful than he'd given him credit for. Approaching the Walsh family was strategic. They had the resources and potential motivation to cause problems if Pierce's information proved valuable. That evening, as Dominic drove Tommy home from the community center opening, his son was unusually quiet. Everything okay, buddy? He asked. Tommy fidgeted with his seatbelt. Mom said Mr. Pierce is out of jail now. Dominic kept his eyes on the road. That's right. He served his sentence. Is he going to come back? Try to hurt us? No, buddy. Mr. Pierce has no reason to come near us, and he knows better than to try. Tommy was silent for another moment. Dad, did you make Mr. Pierce go to jail? Dominic chose his words carefully. Mr. Pierce broke the law, Tommy. I made sure the truth about that was known to the right people. The law did the rest. But if you hadn't told, he might not have gone to jail. That's right. And that wouldn't have been justice. Tommy seemed to consider this. Mom says sometimes it's better to forgive people than to punish them. Your mom has her perspective. Dominic glanced at his son. What do you think? Tommy shrugged. I think it depends on what they did. And if they're really sorry. That's wise, buddy. Very wise. Later that night, after Tommy was asleep, Dominic received a text from an unknown number. You should have taken my offer at the birthday party. Now we'll see what the Walsh family thinks about the original Westridge surveys. Dominic stared at the message, then blocked the number. Pierce was becoming a nuisance again, and nuisances in Dominic's world were eliminated, not tolerated. The next morning, Dominic met with Russell in his office at the foundation. What did you find on Benjamin Walsh? Russell placed a folder on the desk. Harvard Business School. Took over Walsh Development after his father's death. Clean record, respected in the industry. Recently engaged to Congressman Taylor's daughter. And his connection to Pierce? That's where it gets interesting. Russell opened the folder to reveal photographs. Pierce approached him 3 times in the past month. The final meeting included this woman. Dominic examined the photo of an elderly woman with a cane. Who is she? Margaret Westridge. Dominic's expression darkened. The original property owner. Exactly. Her family sold the Westridge tract to your company in 2010, your first major development. That sale was completely legitimate. All paperwork was in order. Yes, but according to my sources, Pierce has been suggesting otherwise. He's apparently told Walsh and Ms. Westridge that there were irregularities in the environmental impact studies, specifically regarding the wetland designation. The Westridge property had contained a small wetland area that had been reclassified prior to development, a completely legal process, though one that had involved substantial paperwork and several meetings with planning officials. Those studies were conducted by certified professionals and approved by regulatory authorities, Dominic said firmly. Yes, but one of those professionals was Floyd Callahan's cousin, and one of those regulatory officials later worked for you as a consultant. Pierce is suggesting collusion. Dominic absorbed this information quietly. What's Walsh's interest? His company owns adjacent property. If the Westridge environmental studies were fraudulent, it could affect his development plans. And the Westridge family might have grounds for a lawsuit claiming they sold under false pretenses. The statute of limitations has long passed. For criminal charges, yes. For civil action, it's more complicated, especially if they claim the information was deliberately concealed. Dominic stood and walked to the window. What does Pierce hope to gain from this? Revenge, partially, but also legitimacy. If he can prove you engage in similar practices to what he was convicted for, it validates his claim that he was singled out unfairly. How much do they know? According to my source, Pierce claims to have copies of original surveys that contradict the final environmental impact statement. But he hasn't produced them yet. Because they don't exist, Dominic said firmly. The surveys were conducted properly. Russell was silent for a moment. Dom, were they? Dominic turned to face his longtime attorney and friend. Are you asking me if I falsified environmental studies, Russell? After all these years, I'm asking if there's anything I need to know to protect you and the Foundation. The only thing you need to know is that Pierce is desperate and dangerous. He'll manufacture evidence if he has to. Dominic returned to his desk. I want surveillance on him. I want to know everyone he meets with. And I want the complete original files on the Westridge development. Everything we have. After Russell left, Dominic sat alone, contemplating his next move. Pierce was attempting to undermine the foundation of Dominic's legitimacy, the very thing Dominic had used to destroy him. It was a calculated move, targeting the one project from Dominic's past that had potential vulnerabilities. The question wasn't whether Pierce could prove wrongdoing. Dominic was confident he couldn't. The question was whether the mere suggestion of impropriety, coming from someone with insider knowledge of the industry, could create enough doubt to damage the Foundation and Dominic's reputation. And that was a risk Dominic couldn't afford to take. Not when everything he'd built for Tommy's future depended on the integrity of the Hawthorne name. Chapter 9. Resolution. 3 days after Benjamin Walsh's visit, Dominic received an encrypted email from Russell containing scanned documents. The subject line read simply, "Found by my investigator in Pierce's apartment." Dominic opened the files to find what appeared to be original environmental surveys of the Westridge property, surveys that contradicted the official reports submitted for the development permits. The documents were dated from 2010 and contained handwritten notes in what looked like Floyd Callahan's handwriting, detailing how to revise the wetland boundaries. If authentic, these documents would support Pierce's allegations of fraud and potentially expose Dominic to civil liability. More importantly, they would undermine the Foundation's integrity and tarnish Tommy's inheritance. Dominic immediately called Russell. "These are forgeries. Are you certain? They look convincing. Floyd's handwriting is close but inconsistent. And the letterhead, look at the logo. We changed design firms in 2009. These used a newer logo on supposedly older documents." Good catch. Russell sounded relieved. But it means Pierce is actively fabricating evidence. How did your investigator obtain these? Paid a cleaning service employee for access. Completely off the books. Make copies, then have them returned exactly as found. Pierce mustn't know we're aware of his plan. The next day, Dominic received a formal letter from Benjamin Walsh requesting a meeting to discuss historical matters relating to the Westridge development. The letter mentioned that Margaret Westridge and her attorney would be present, along with other interested parties. Instead of responding directly, Dominic called Howard. "I need your help with something delicate." 2 hours later, Howard arrived at Dominic's office. After ensuring privacy, Dominic explained the situation. "Pierce is manufacturing evidence to suggest I fraudulently developed the Westridge property. He's convinced Benjamin Walsh and the original property owner to investigate." Howard frowned. "But the development was legitimate, right?" Dominic gave him a long look. "Of course it was. But perception matters as much as reality. If Pierce can create enough doubt, he could damage the foundation. What do you need from me? Margaret Westridge trusts you. Your firm handled her late husband's estate. I need you to meet with her privately before Walsh's planned confrontation." Howard hesitated. To do what exactly? To show her these. Dominic handed over a folder containing photographs and documents. "These are the original, authentic surveys of her property, along with records of the full payment her family received, considerably above market value at the time." Howard reviewed the materials. "And if she asks why I'm involved, tell her the truth. That you're concerned she's being used as a pawn in Pierce's vendetta against me. That her reputation could be damaged if she associates with his false claims." Do you think she'll listen? She's a practical woman from a business-minded family. Show her the financial records, especially the comparison showing how much more she received than similar properties sold that year. Howard nodded slowly. "And Walsh. I'll handle Walsh separately." After Howard left, Dominic made another call to Senator Walsh's widow, Elizabeth. They had served together on charity boards years ago, and while not close friends, they shared mutual respect. "Elizabeth, it's Dominic Hawthorne. I apologize for calling unexpectedly, but I'm concerned about a situation involving Benjamin." He explained that her son was being drawn into a potentially embarrassing situation by Alastair Pierce, a convicted felon with a personal vendetta. "Benjamin is a smart businessman," Elizabeth replied. "He wouldn't pursue this without reason. Pierce is presenting forged documents, Elizabeth, documents that appear to show irregularities in the Westridge development. But they're fabrications designed to damage my foundation and reputation. Have you spoken to Benjamin about this? I want to speak with you first, out of respect for your late husband. Senator Walsh and I didn't always agree on policy, but we respected each other's integrity." There was a pause before Elizabeth responded. "I'll speak with Benjamin. I can't promise he'll withdraw from this matter, but I'll ensure he understands the potential complications of associating with someone like Pierce. That's all I ask." "Thank you, Elizabeth." The following day, Dominic received a brief email from Benjamin Walsh. Meeting postponed indefinitely. Further review of preliminary evidence indicates insufficient basis for proceeding. Regards, B. Walsh. Howard called that evening. Margaret Westridge has withdrawn her participation in any investigation of the Westridge development. She was quite emphatic about not wanting to be involved in a feud between developers. Dominic allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. And Pierce. According to my sources, he's furious. Apparently showed up at Walsh's office demanding an explanation and was escorted out by security. Perfect. Dominic gazed out at the lake, watching Tommy skip stones in the fading light. One final piece to attend to. The next morning, Dominic visited the small office Pierce had established in Portland. The secretary, not recognizing him, asked if he had an appointment. "No, but Mr. Pierce will want to see me. Tell him Dominic Hawthorne is here." Moments later, a visibly agitated Pierce burst from his office. "You, how dare you show up here? Is there somewhere we can speak privately?" Dominic asked calmly. Pierce glared, then jerked his head toward his office. Once inside with the door closed, he turned on Dominic. "Here to gloat?" Walsh pulled out. "The Westridge woman won't return my calls. You've poisoned everyone against me. Again, I'm here to deliver a message, Alastair. One final message. I don't want to hear anything you have to say." Dominic placed a USB drive on the desk. "This contains footage from your recent meetings with Walsh and Margaret Westridge. It also contains clear images of the forged documents you created. Documents that constitute criminal fraud." Pierce paled. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Dominic sat down uninvited. "You're on probation, Alastair. Criminal fraud would send you back to prison, this time to a considerably less comfortable facility than your previous accommodation. What do you want? For you to disappear. Permanently. Not just from my life and Tommy's, but from this region entirely. Pierce laughed bitterly. You want me to just abandon everything and leave? Because you say so? No, because it's your only viable option. Dominic leaned forward. The alternative is that I provide this evidence to your probation officer and the FBI. You return to prison. Upon release, you'll find that I've established a foundation grant specifically designed to fund legal representation for anyone who believes they were defrauded by your business practices. There are plenty of former clients who would jump at financial backing to pursue claims against you. You're insane. This isn't vendetta, Alistair. It's mathematics. You try to destroy what I built. You failed. Now you're trying again and failing again. The sensible choice is to acknowledge defeat and move on. Pierce stared at him, hatred burning in his eyes. You destroyed everything I had. My company, my marriage, my reputation. No, Dominic stood. You destroyed those things when you chose to cheat, lie, and manipulate. I merely ensured you face the consequences of those choices. He moved toward the door. You have 48 hours to make arrangements to leave. After that, the evidence goes to the authorities. And if I agree, you'll just let me walk away. As long as you never contact me, my family, or anyone connected to us again. As long as you establish your new life at least 500 miles from here. And as long as you understand that if you ever attempt to retaliate again, the consequences will make your previous experiences seem pleasant by comparison. Pierce slumped in his chair, the fight visibly draining from him. You really are a monster, Hawthorne. No, I'm just a man who protects what's his. Something you should have considered before targeting my family. Dominic opened the door. 48 hours, Alistair. Make them count. 3 days later, Russell confirmed that Pierce had sold his fledgling business and purchased a one-way ticket to Miami. The threat was neutralized, this time permanently. That weekend, Dominic and Tommy stood on the dock at Hawthorne Lake, fishing poles in hand. The morning sun glinted off the water, and birds called from the surrounding forest that Tommy's trust now protected in perpetuity. Dad, Tommy asked, reeling in his line. Are we going to the foundation opening next week? The one for the new housing project. Absolutely. It's an important day. Tommy nodded thoughtfully. Mom says you're helping a lot of people now. That the foundation is doing good things. That's the goal, buddy. To build something meaningful. Something that lasts. Is that why you were so angry when Mr. Pierce and Mom tried to hurt her business? Because you were building something important. Dominic looked down at his son, perceptive, intelligent, and mercifully innocent of the full scope of adult betrayals and retributions. Partly, but mostly because they betrayed trust. When people work together, they have to trust each other. Breaking that trust doesn't just hurt feelings. It damages everything connected to it. Like when Adam lied about breaking the window at school, and then everyone in class got in trouble. Something like that, yes. Tommy was quiet for a moment, then said, I'm glad the bad stuff is over. I like how things are now. Dominic put his arm around his son's shoulders. Me too, buddy. As they stood together on the dock, Dominic surveyed the kingdom he had defended and expanded. Not just the physical properties and business holdings, but the legacy he was creating for Tommy. A legacy built on the understanding that actions have consequences, that betrayal comes with a cost, and that real power lies not in forgiveness, but in the ability to deliver justice on your own terms. The foundation he had established would do good work, helping communities and creating opportunities. But its true purpose, like everything Dominic had built since Olivia's betrayal, was to ensure that Tommy inherited a world where the Hawthorne name commanded respect and even fear, where no one would dare cross him as they had his father. Olivia had rebuilt a cordial relationship with Tommy and found a new path forward professionally. Floyd had retreated to obscurity, his reputation permanently stained. Pierce had been systematically destroyed, then exiled when he attempted to retaliate. And Dominic? He had emerged stronger, his true nature revealed but unchallenged. The ruthless calculator beneath the builder's exterior now acknowledged, and even respected by those who had previously underestimated him. "I think I got a bite," Tommy exclaimed, his fishing rod bending. "Steady," Dominic advised, watching his son battle with the fish. "Take your time. Remember what I taught you." As Tommy successfully landed the large trout, his face glowing with pride, Dominic felt a rare moment of genuine contentment. Not happiness. That was, as he told Howard, for people who hadn't seen behind the curtain, but satisfaction in knowing that every foundation he'd laid, both literal and metaphorical, had been built to withstand any storm. And anyone who ever considered crossing Dominic Hawthorne in the future would remember the fate of those who had tried before. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.